Well, the narrator said, "I do not like them, Sam I am. I do not like green eggs and ham. Would you like them in a house? Would you like them with a mouse? Would you eat them in a box? Would you eat them with a fox? Would you, could you, in a car? Eat them, here they are." Well, those words probably bring some memories to you from the wonderful book by Dr. Seuss, Green Eggs and Ham. And I don't know about you, but those words seem to rhyme, don't they? They have a little bit of melody, a little bit of syncopation to them, and they start to stick in your brain, don't they? And so for the rest of the day, you might be saying, green eggs and ham. But in addition to the words that we hear, we can't forget about the illustrations that are in the book. When you open the book in the very first pages, there's this unnamed guy, and he's sitting in a chair and he's reading what looks to be a newspaper. And Sam I Am comes along. And he starts running back and forth in front of this gentleman who's trying to read, and he's riding on some sort of camel-looking thing. Until finally, Sam I Am knocks the papers right out of his hands. That Sam I Am truly is annoying. And of course, the narrator who's trying to read his paper, he becomes very, very agitated. Being disturbed when he's trying to do something else. It's annoying, isn't it? Haven't we all been there? You know, when the telemarketer calls during dinner or your favorite TV show? How about that endless line of questions from a child or a coworker or perhaps even a customer who won't go away? When we get our minds set on something, we get into a zone, don't we? And when we're in that zone, we don't like to be interrupted. And our interruption tends to lead to an eruption of our own emotions. Whatever idea or concern or suggestion that the person who's interrupted us has, we've already determined that we're not going to like it. It doesn't matter. I don't care what it is you're selling. I don't need it. I don't care whatever your question. I don't have time for it. I don't care whatever guidance or direction you have for me in my life. I simply don't need it. Leave me alone, Sam I Am. The problem with this is that many times in our lives you'll discover that it's God who uses interruptions to get our attention. Because otherwise we're locked into our own plan, and we find that we are not open. We're not even open to the slightest suggestion or hint that comes our way. We fail to see the insight that God has for us and wants to share for us. But you really do have to respect Sam I Am, don't you? He is a persistent bugger. And the narrator, he certainly is obstinate, isn't he? Reminds me of the systems that we work in our lives every day. The systems that don't like change. You know, our families who won't change, our friends who don't like to change, our church, even ourselves. We don't necessarily like to change either, do we? Let's face it, for some of us, even returning to a bad situation is more preferable than going to someplace unknown. I think that's why we all kind of laugh under our tongues when we hear Albert Einstein, who said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. It's true, but don't we do it anyhow? Sam I Am, he is the model of persistence. He's trying to get this narrator to try green eggs and ham. And he tries whatever way possible. He says, how about in a house or with a mouse? How about in a car or in a boat? He explores every single option out there, trying to get him to just taste the green eggs and ham. The psalmist that was read for us says, "You know when I leave and when I get back. I'm never out of your sight. You know everything I'm going to say before I even start my very first sentence." God is persistent with us. Well, how do we shift our way of thinking that instead of resenting the interruptions in our life, that we might begin to look for God in those. So that if we are deeply engrossed in a book, or when our heads are stuck inside our cell phones, or when our eyes are glued to the TV, or our minds are focused on one single task, that when some version of Sam I Am begins running back and forth in front of us, that we don't miss the invitation from God. What if instead of reacting with hostility or even reluctance, what instead of giving that great big huff and finally giving in, what if we look for God's invitation? What might that look like for us? I'd like to suggest a prayer, perhaps, that we could start our day with. Lord, help me to see you in every moment of the day. Would you say that with me?
Lord, help me to see you in every moment of the day.
What if we took a breath? You know, a breath is a very powerful physical act. You know, right before we react, during the interruption, we take a breath. Take a breath with me. Breathe in and breathe out. What if we asked ourselves a question? Is this God before me now? What if this interruption that has truly erupted inside of our emotions is an invitation? And we pause and we just ask one simple question. Is this God before me now? Brothers and sisters, look, we all know this. Life happens. And it happens in between all of our planning and our orchestrating and all of our control. Life happens. And when we maintain some kind of openness to where God's interruptions may be leading us, then the question that Sam I Am asks throughout the book, would you, could you, that could change for us. And the question becomes, would you, could you, if God asked you?
Amen.